Hello and welcome everyone, I'm C.S.Gilmore, and today we're going to talk about the Warhammer Age of Sigmar book, Briardark. And let's kind of make out good details on, isn't it? There we go. So, Briardark is another one of the horror stories. This one is set in the fantasy setting, however. Tales of Murghast. Evil stirs in Briardark, an ancient forest that looms over the Shaitian village of Felstein, where whispers abound of the spectres and brutes that lurk amongst the trees. One man keeps these perils at bay, Samuel Hungart, the revered beast hunter of Felstein. But when tragedy strikes his family, an unknowable foe is unleashed, one that stalks the villagers and turns neighbor against neighbor. Soon a witch hunt ensues. In the midst of his own sorrow, Samuel's daughter, Cicely, struggles with grief that is twisted into something dark. To save her, the beast hunter must track down the entity in the forest and the evil that beckons to his daughter from beyond a most hostile grave. So, pretty early on in the story, the Cicely, uh, the huntsman's daughter, and her brother end up in this forest, and they get attacked by this big wolf thing. A big wolf, if I recall, of some sort. I don't believe it was a natural wolf. And Cicely ends up coming to later having been saved by a man named Verda. What was his name? I had it here a minute ago. Almost there. Verdergast. Now they live in a Shaiish, I think. So this is like the realm of death. Nagash's territory, who's like I think at this time kind of a god of undeath and the dead in general. Previously a necromancer, of super powerful necromancer. Anyhow, yeah. Anyway, she gets back. Her brother's dead, and spoilers ahead in case. I feel like I should mention that now, just in case. But duh, because we're going to be talking about this book. She gets back and she finds that over time, let's see, Vertigast gives her a special magical needle to help her with things, and yeah, there's some stuff he shows her anyway. He gives her a magical needle, and that's because she starts fading, losing life, becoming sickly and not well. And she ends up, I forget exact all the details on how she figures out some of this, but I think it was initially an accident. She used the needle to like make someone's picture in an embroidery or of a tapestry she was working on for her family. Yeah, family tree type tapestry deal. And she ends up killing one of her siblings by uh, bit of being possessed by it, as I recall correct, by the needle, as I recall correctly, and doing putting some making a picture of one of her family members, and but it comes out weird, and like they're them dying in some way, and then they end up dying like that. And as they die, she gets more life, but it's over, and after it lasts for a while, some hours or days. I think it was days, and then it starts fading again. And she realized, basically, she starts coming to a realization that she has to take life from others in order to sustain herself right now. and she doesn't know what else to do, and she's afraid of death. Very afraid of dying, and enough to be willing to, say, take the life of others. And she tries various things. She kind of tries to, like, maybe if I could just take a little bit of life. It doesn't work. No matter what she does, it ends up killing the person. She gets some life for a little bit. Some lives give her more than others. And yeah, and it's a kind of a sad. This is a horror story. It's kind of sad because she kills off a number of people, including some children, as I recall correctly. And I can't remember if she ends up accidentally killing an infant. Her mother ends up dying, and her father, being the huntsman and kind of the protector of the village, is trying to figure out what's going on. He doesn't realize that she's the problem, and he's also dealing with some issues because in the land of the dead don't always stay dead very good, and there are things like chain rasps and gaunts, like yeah. Some of the one of the factions in the Warhammer Fantasy setting is basically a bunch of weird ghost things and undead. And let's say they tend to be very unfriendly to the living. And, the standard things like, they're out for vengeance or other things like that. And gee, their lives were taken by dark magic. So they're a little ticked off. Her father, trying to figure this out, brings in a scholar who I think used to be either a priest or some general, someone who was a follower of Nagash, and knows some things there. Basically, he's referred to as a scholar, but he seems to have been higher up in the Nagash lines of things. They also have some with all the bad stuff going on. Some knights show up, undead knights. Nagash has some of his own types of enforcers. While like the Order of Azir has the witch hunters and things like that, the Nagash religion has Templars, and they are very not fun to go up against. Very powerful. Being undead, they have to deal with some of the usual problems that the living would, while they hunt down their quarry and deal with them. Things like that. Lots of stuff goes on. Eventually, they find out that she's the one killing people. The scholar kind of helps defend some people a bit by giving some talismans out that can shield against the magic. Basically, as I recall, how it works is like if she starts working on a picture of someone and they have all these talismans, it interferes with the magic of the needle and she can't finish the picture correctly, and so the magic doesn't take hold. Yeah, so let me see here. Father, I thought I had it marked for a bit, but I think I lost that page. I did. Yeah, there's a bit where they find the tapestry she had used for most of her things, and they are questioning like he holds up to the light, and he sees that there's some differences in some of the lighting of the stitch work, and that's where he sees the needle and thread she had used had caused like the imagery to show some different things, like this person in flames, this one strangled, etc., and so forth. And then one of them, I can't remember if it was her father or him. I think it was possibly him. Had been one of them had been worked into it as well, but hadn't died. And he realizes, wait, the stitch working is different, and she used some different thread, and that's how he war pieces this scholar piece together. It's the needle that she's using. That's why she was able to, like, her father's like, maybe now she can't do anything if we burn the tapestry and he burns it. Maybe now she won't be able to do anything. And the scholar realizes, no, it's not the tapestry that's important. It's the needle that's important. Meanwhile, Cicely, the daughter's gone to try to get help by going to the person that helped her before, Vertigast. And she gets out to him, and that's where she learns she's dead. Or rather, she's undead. And what happened was Vertigast was working with the wolf. And he was a necromancer. One that was very good at creating undead. They were so lifelike that even they may not realize it. As in her case, she didn't realize it. And he reveals to her, oh no, after the wolf attack, it wasn't you injured and your brother dead. It was your brother was the one who was buried alive. You were dead. I took his life to bring you back as an undead because I knew what type of person you were. I knew that you were the sort that would desperation to not die and fade again. Someone who's who was so scared of death and all that they'd be willing to take others' lives to preserve themselves. And a lot of stuff goes down. There's a fight with the Templars. I believe the Necromancer Vertigast gets away. And we learn some interesting things. I believe I mentioned in the Bookkeeper Skull that they tend to have a mention of a place called Murghast, or a place or an entity or whatever it is, Murghast. And it seems to be tied to some of these horror stories. Now, Bookkeeper's Call was a 40k setting, of course. This is a fantasy setting, but we learned that a bit, as I recall, that the reason she's fading constantly is because the Necromancer tied her life and everything to Murghast. And so, basically, every time she takes a life to sustain herself, and then it's being drained off to feed Murghast, she's basically just a drawn-out sacrifice. And she realizes this, and she basically, eventually, after realizing she's dead already and everything like that, she actually is trying to, stop this all. And there's a big fight with one of the Templar. With the Templar, I believe the Scholar kills it. And he's like, that's gonna have repercussions, killing a high-ranking member of Nurgash's bunch, even for someone like me who may have been a high-ranking person myself at one point in time. And the father has to watch Cicely fade away to nothing as she is consumed by Murghast. And the father is left with nothing. His entire family is dead and gone. Let me share a little bit near the end here. A man, Cicely said, Verdergast. He called himself. I thought him an outcast physician, but he was in truth a necromancer. He couldn't restore life, only usurp death. A shiver swept through her, and she stared down at her fading hands, for a time at least. "When we have to find him," Samuel snapped. "Force him to use more of his magic." Cicely frowned and stepped away from her father. "He's gone. He got what he wanted from me, an enchanted needle black with my sins." That's right, he takes the needle back. "He's gone to spread more evil elsewhere, to conjure Murghast." Samuel felt a repugnance in the word, hearing it as he did. Now its effect on Auric was even more pronounced. Auric was the scholar who was helping him. He paled and began to tremble. "Murghast? What did this man tell you about Murghast?" "Only that it is an evil even the gods cannot oppose," Cicely said, her breath fading into a hollow rasp. Her eyes darted to the talisman Samuel had thrown away. "I know what awaits me. To prolong it is more than I can endure." Too late, Samuel realized her intention. Cicely seized the talisman before he could move to stop her. Clutching it in both hands, she clasped it to her breast, above her heart. The awful, gradual decline he'd noted, the withered pallor, now intensified. He saw the bones beneath her flesh as her skin became completely transparent. Then the bones themselves took on an ethereal quality. Cicely's eyes lingered on Samuel before they too evaporated like mist before the sun. "Forgive me," his daughter's voice rang in his ears, a last appeal for her father's love. Then she was gone, vanished as though she'd never been. Auric walked over and prodded the abandoned talisman with his toe. It crumbled into ash at his touch. Samuel fell to his knees. Samuel is the huntsman, her father, the axe tumbling out of his nerveless fingers. The pain of his slashed and battered body was as nothing compared to the torment that filled his heart. "I should have let her do whatever she needed to, helped her whatever way I could to keep her alive." Auric set a consoling hand on the hunter's shoulder. "She was already lost to you. You could have done nothing." She knew that at the end. "Go back to Gothghul Hollow," Samuel snarled at the scholar. "If I'd never brought you to Felstein, my daughter would still be here." "No, she wouldn't," Auric said. "She was marked, cursed to be consumed by Murghast." I forgot this guy was from Gothghul Hollow, which is really interesting because that's a different book which I'm going to be talking about. Gothghul Hollow. Was he the same character? One of the same characters in this? I think he might have been. He might have been a scholar in this as well, but I'd have to look it up. I can't remember now. Auric. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look it up. I can't remember. That'd be interesting if the scholar was the tying character between these two novels. Were they written by the same person? Anna Stefan C.L. Werner. Nope. That's cool that they kind of tied some stuff together either way, using some similar places, and it seems like similar characters. Possibly the same one. But anyway. Yeah, so Samuel, it ends with Samuel basically, like, they're like, we have to hunt down Vertigast still, and the hunter's eyes brimmed with tears as he looked across the desolate graveyard. I'd asked him to show me the way to Murghast. There was no terror for Samuel in that dread name now, only a desperate sense of longing to join his daughter, to go where he wasn't allowed to follow, to embrace the torments of Murghast. He was a little broken up by that. Now, there was still, like I said, a lot I skipped. All the murders were very compacted compared to how they went. It is a shorter book still. It's under 300 pages, but it was longer than The Deacon of Wounds. It's like 280 something pages, I believe. 282, I believe. Rather than just barely 200. But it's a fun read. The characters were interesting. I'm a big fan of the dark magics and whatnot that you can run into in the fantasy setting. Oh, there we go. I got the lighting right, so you can actually see this picture. Haha. Briardark. It's a little hard to. It was hard for me to get a good angle on that because it's very dark overall. I believe that is a picture of the scholar and the guy with the. It looks more like the huntsman being the beastmaster. So Samuel, right there, and then the scholar guy. And yeah, that's the story of Briardark in a rather compacted format. It's a one I would say is worth reading, especially for a horror fan, and if you like the fantasy stuff or anything to do with Margast and what it's hinting at, which seems to be kind of hinting at something that is greater than the Chaos Gods, like maybe some background force of nature. I don't know, some ancient evil. Whatever it is, hard to say. But I'm guessing it's the nothingness. It could be one of those jokes, kind of like the Games Workshop sometimes does, of it's that nothingness of when things fade away, when we decide to we're done with this character, toss them into the abyss of they're getting put in the what do they call it when they make them so that they're no longer board legal. I can't remember. I know more no longer in circulation. There was a word they used for it particularly, and I don't remember right now. But yeah, it was interesting. The character was interesting. You get to see the inner turmoil of Cicely a lot, of her fighting against the fear of death and trying not to kill people, but also being desperate not to die herself. And then as you see her slip further and further down the rabbit hole of becoming, I don't know, maybe possessed a little bit by the power, on kind of almost like an addiction. She doesn't want to kill, but she also can't really stop herself from doing it. Her fear of death is too great. She has to do it. She tries to just siphon a little energy from him and finds can't do it. It's not enough to sustain her, and no matter what she does, death. And yeah, it's a good horror story. Maybe I don't think it's as good as Deacon of Wounds, but that was because I think the Deacon of Wounds was one of the best horror stories that I read for the 40k setting. And though this one is pretty good as far as the fantasy setting goes. So yeah, check this one out. It's fun, especially, and also I like the effect they do with the pages. They make the edges of the pages blue. They like to do that with some of the horror stories I've noticed. They like to make them different color. Gothghul Hollow is purple. And so yeah, given that this kind of ties together, I think next time we'll talk about Gothghul Hollow. I can't remember if these are tied together. I wonder if this is a precursor to Briardark. I don't remember which one came out first. Things to question. Anyway, that's it for now. I need to call it a night, I think, here pretty soon. Yeah, I didn't sleep great last night. It's getting late. So, good night, everyone. Hit like, hit subscribe to keep up with the releases if you haven't done so already. And comments below, have you read the book? What did you think about any important parts I missed? Any favorite parts that I didn't cover? Or least favorite parts? All that good stuff. Talk about the book. Let's talk. Because I probably forgot something important. But it's a fun read. One I can recommend. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the spoilers, or talking about it if you want, even if it wasn't a spoiler. And if you do end up reading it or have already read it, I hope it was a book you enjoyed. Good night. Bye.